Have you identified that your child has an individual need that requires support, but you have reached out for support but have only been met with scepticism, or feeling that your child's needs aren't SEN enough to deserve support? This causes friction between a child's individual need being acknowledged and a school's ability to meet that need when support is not accessible. So in this video, I'm going to look at what factors contribute to others having scepticism about a child living with an individual need or difference, and I will highlight what we as parents need to do as we advocate for our child's individual needs to be acknowledged and recognised as a result. My name is Brenda and I'm a parent mentor and a fellow parent. I support parents raising children with individual needs and differences to stay empowered whilst they advocate for their children whilst in mainstream education. And on my SEN journey, whilst advocating for my son who is living with the conditions of autism and ADHD whilst he was in education, I continually found myself feeling frustrated after engaging in conversations with teachers and SENCOs and the local authority, where I found that we just couldn't see eye to eye in regards to acknowledging my son's unmet needs. But before I go on, it's important for me to explain that I'm not referring to eligibility criteria as to why a person does not qualify for support, but more around why we may feel unheard as parents. Because let's face it, how would a practitioner know whether a child's needs qualify if they are unaware of a child's lived experience? So let's have a look at these factors. Unfortunately, scepticism occurs when it is perceived that if one thing happens, it can't mean that another can. And this happens if your child is deemed as academic, then they can't possibly need support for special educational needs. Where there is an attitude of doubt towards a child's ability, it causes a child to feel lost and creates friction for everyone that's involved. When a school doesn't see a problem, this leads to a lack of intentional action towards seeking support for a child who may require special educational needs support. Doubt contributes to a child not having support if left unacknowledged, and it can lead to your child's academic potential heading in a direction that you won't expect, where you might see your child struggling to keep up. For example, if a child's inability to follow a task, follow social cues, regulate their emotions, not fidget, is overlooked for reasons such as, oh, they're just doing fine, this will have an impact on their progress. And if a child is masking, which is where they might hide or disguise part of themselves in order to be able to fit in, then in these predicaments, advocating for your child's needs to be acknowledged and recognised is the only option to be able to achieve progress. And another factor that may contribute to scepticism is if your child is deemed as special educational needs, therefore they can't have a high academic ability. This allows for a child's potential to go under the radar. And in my experience, this became obvious when it was clear that because my son was in receipt of special educational needs, he could only go down one trajectory. And this was a path that I found didn't consider any other academic options other than the only options available that were through the prisms of special educational needs. The problems occur if it's deemed that your child does not fit the mould. Therefore, it creates a huge barrier between them and their learning. And this is where, as parents, we then have to show up to be able to advocate for our children so that they don't fall through the cracks. And then the final thing that contributes to scepticism is if your child is not deemed as special educational needs or as having any academic ability. This one creates a lot of scepticism as to whether your child can actually be taught. Because when it feels like your child is deemed as not SEN enough or not academic enough, it can lead to your child having feelings of isolation and frustration along their educational journey. They might find themselves questioning their own ability, feeling that they are not seen. But here's the thing, according to Article 28 of the UNCRC, it states that children and young people have a right to an education no matter who they are. And when we see firsthand that our child's needs are not acknowledged as deserving of support, or worst of all being labelled as disruptive, can leave any parent feeling lost with what to do. As a parent, we're left trying to identify why our children are unhappy, when we know that they're struggling and they're leaning towards not actually wanting to go into school during those times when they're engaging in their education. This is annoying because needs and abilities look different for everyone. Some young people, they have more visible traits, whilst others have perhaps more subtle traits. And I've seen where this creates a lot of misunderstanding, misinterpretations, as well as like a lot of judgments and bias towards a young person. So being in a position to feel confident, to engage in conversations where everyone is open to exploring different possibilities, outcomes and perspectives with the vision of collaborating effectively is the most effective way to navigate this, especially when a child is capable of achieving this but can't. But once we recognise this, we can then decide what to do next, because showing up to make sure that our children do not miss out, fall short of an education in an empowered way is the solution. So if you've liked this video or you feel information in this video resonates with you, why not take a look at this playlist that talks about staying empowered. But for now, keep doing what you're doing, stay focused, stay empowered and keep creating progress. Thank you for listening.